Good evening, Franklin Township. Welcome to the January 13th, 2022 edition of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour. I'm Bill Bowman, the co-publisher and editor of the News Hour, and I'm joined this evening by
PJ Parker, also co-publisher and the advertising director of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate.
Yes, and I am stoked about this program that we're going to be presenting this evening. We have State Assemblyman Joe Danielsen, who is one of Franklin's own, a Franklin native son, and also pertaining to this particular discussion, he's one of the principal authors of the legislation that finally legalized marijuana, recreational use marijuana in the state and businesses and such. We also have Vince Dominach, who is the township's economic development director. And both of those guys are going to be on in a couple of minutes. We're going to talk about Franklin, how Franklin is situated for the budding cannabis business industry in the state. If you haven't been following along Franklin, and you really should have, the Township Council, I guess it was last year, passed an ordinance that accepting all the possible 6 licenses that cannabis manufacturers and processors and retailers need to operate in the state. Not every town in the state has done that. In fact, some towns have been opposed to it, even though recreational marijuana legalization of recreational marijuana passed overwhelmingly in the state. Franklin is one of the few towns, one of the what's the word I'm saying? I'm looking for pioneering towns in the state who has embraced weed, and more precisely, I think the tax money that's going to come from the businesses. And there are some businesses that have already expressed interest in coming into Franklin.
Well, and on the economic development side of it as well, that with an industry like this that is just starting to really boom, that Franklin Township is clearly going to be benefiting from this. There's such tremendous interest from the land use to development to distribution to retailing, and now it has the green light from legislatures. So it's going to be an interesting ride.
Absolutely. And before we get going, Franklin, I just want to remind you to continue to see programs like this on Facebook and on YouTube, which is where we stream our news hour. Please support us. Subscribe. You can go to franklinreporter.com, and there'll be a box there that'll lead you through how to subscribe. 10 cents a day, $37 a year. It's really not a lot, but it means a lot to us. The other way you can support us, obviously, if you have a small business or an organization or a big business, is advertise with us, and we'll give you some more information about that later. And before we begin, I just want to let you know that this news hour is brought to you by We Shop CBD Bud Tender, located at 657 Hamilton Street. We Shop CBD Bud Tender is your home for all things CBD, from gummies to tea to beauty and healthcare items. They even have products for your pets. So for your CBD needs, visit We Shop CBD Bud Tender at 657 Hamilton Street, or call them at 732-757-2866. And we thank our friends William and Marcel over there for sponsoring this evening. So without further ado, I say we bring in our guests. Welcome, State Assemblyman Joe Danielsen.
Happy New Year, Franklin Township, and I want to thank the Franklin Reporter and Advocate for always being in every corner of Franklin Township with facts, stories, and otherwise good service. I start my mornings first checking with the Franklin Reporter and Advocate and having a cup of Joe, because we're both always at your service.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Kind.
We appreciate that. All right, so let's just I'm trying to think of a funny pun, but I can't think of it. Let's just dive right in.
It'll get funnier as we go along.
I have no doubt. Okay, so Assemblyman Danielsen, give us a little bit of the history of the legislation and what the highlights of the legislation are, and those 6 licenses that I talked about that Franklin Township Council, I guess, welcomed last year.
Well, what Franklin Township did, and to their credit, their courage and their maturity, is they recognize the benefit of marijuana. They also recognize the desire of the people to have marijuana. And they also recognize the fact that marijuana has been in our communities, our homes, everywhere for thousands of years. And they chose to legally invite marijuana businesses without restriction. And thus, we sent out the beacon of opportunity to all businesses, employees, hopefuls, investors. Franklin is the place to do business. So let's applaud the Franklin Township Council for their courage and insight into it.
Okay. Now you worked in some parts. You worked some stuff into legislation that helps out minority and women-owned businesses.
Correct. I was the author of most, not all, but most of the social equity, social justice, business opportunities, from making them specific license categories and extra points. One category is social justice for all those who got arrested or convicted or PTI for marijuana offenses. Now you can apply to be a license holder and you can get extra points. Second category is if you're a woman, a minority, and or a disabled veteran, you can get further extra points. Lastly, I created what was called an impact zone. These were towns specifically impacted by a certain level of unemployment, certain level of crime, racial percentages, to be declared impact zone. Franklin Township was within that definition. So in all 3 of those categories, if you satisfy them, it's even easier for you to enter the business as a license holder.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's not a lot of female disabled veterans who have been previously convicted, so it's not easy to get all of those categories, but you can get one or more of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I also I created and wrote the part of the law that is called micro license, because not everybody wants to go to a nationally chained restaurant. They'd rather go to the little boutique restaurant down the road, who doesn't make as much money, but does make a living for that family. And they have that creativity, the diversity, the differences, so forth. So that is also allowed in Franklin Township. I really have to applaud the Township Council and the mayor for understanding it. You know what they did? First, they allowed me to add to their education on the matter. But then I said, listen, let's not do this alone. Let's ask the people. So the council held a dedicated council meeting, as you remember, and advertised it for many weeks and invited everybody to come and comment. We also took our own private polling. Polling was very one-sided in favor of marijuana. But then we had public question throughout the whole state. That removes all doubt. Franklin Township was almost 70% in favor of marijuana. Now, there are towns like Hillsborough who also had that same percentage of favorability towards marijuana, yet their township council thought that they knew better than the people's will, and they banned all marijuana businesses. Now, what's ironic and ignorant about that is marijuana is going to be in their town just as much and at the will of the people, because you can't stop marijuana from it being brought into your town. You could just stop it from being grown or sold. So the net result for Franklin Township people who live here and work here is all these businesses, all these investors, all these jobs, all these employees, all these opportunity, all the science and technology, all the partnerships with corporate, with Wall Street, with the Rutgers University, with Barnabas Robert Wood Johnson, with the New Jersey Cancer Institute. These are all partnerships, opportunities, jobs, and profit that now exist in Franklin. So now we've changed the entire air in our town. We've changed the atmosphere. We've changed the business community. Such an impact, Bill, that leading up to the applications for the state, it was actually hard and to some impossible to find any retail place because, there's got to be hundreds of people who were seeking retail space so they can complete an application for a retail license. Additionally, all the warehouse space was taken up, not only because of warehouse market, but because the surge of marijuana licensed teams looking for buildings to grow. So Franklin Township was saturated and probably still is. Of course, Vince could tell you more about that, but
Right.
applicants are running out of places. If not, they have run out of places to exist.
Well, that's interesting. As part of the application process, do these folks whether they're going to warehouse or process or want to sell in a retail store, do they have to have a location picked out already?
In some circumstances, yes. Some circumstances, no. It depends on how you submit your application.
Okay.
One of the other things that I wrote was called a conditional license.
Mm-hmm.
That's simply if you're looking at a license you want, but you can't qualify all the requirements. Instead, what you do is you apply for a conditional license, or one could call it an incomplete license. That means you're missing one or two of the check boxes you need to check. But why I did that, for example, if you had everything in order, but you can't find a location. If you had the location, but you didn't have the union collective bargain agreement. Or if, say, on your team, you had an environmental specialist who, got sick for a month, and you just couldn't finish part of your application, you should not lose that opportunity. Additionally, for that type of application, I also made it so it is a priority for approval or denial. So a conditional licenses actually get heard before everybody else's, along with the micro license. Now, micro license, you have to live in Franklin. You have to be a woman, minority, and or a disabled vet. And you have to live here. So if you see a micro license or a conditional license, you're going to know I gave it special statutory attention. But micro license has to be someone local.
That's interesting.
To own it.
That's interesting. There have been how many rounds now? 2 or 3 rounds of the what's the state board called? The
Cannabis Regulatory
Commission. And so they have issued licenses in what 2 or 3 rounds now, right?
They have. I don't follow that too closely.
Okay. All right.
That's a bit much.
Okay. So what is the cost? I mean, I know the full blown license costs tons of money, right? And you got the micro licenses in there, so they wouldn't be quite as costly.
Yes, that's another thing we wrote in the legislation. There's all these licenses are affordable now. That's not really where the state's making their money. We're really looking to make our money on the tax sale of it, because we're not taxing medical any longer. Instead, we're going to tax non-medical. So there's a sliding scale depending on what size or what tier license you're applying for. There's a different fee schedule, and regardless of what it is, it's a drop in a bucket compared to all the other expenses you have to go through, regardless of what size license. Here's another good thing: all the tax revenue from adult use marijuana in the state, not all of it, 70% of the tax revenue will go back to the impact zones only.
Wow.
So all the marijuana state, out of all the towns. How many towns are there in New Jersey?
500.
500 towns. Only 22 towns are impact zones. Franklin's one of those 22 towns. And Franklin will share proportionately in 70% of the tax revenue. The other 30% is to run the Cannabis Regulatory Commission.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's another windfall for Franklin then.
Sure.
Wow, whatever will they do with the money? Maybe they'll pave some more roads.
I'm sure. Listen, you know, Franklin Council does a very good job as a steward of our tax money.
Yeah. So, and in my history of covering towns in this state, and I've been doing that since 1983. They do a very good job. Yes. PJ, did you have anything you wanted to ask Joe?
I have so many questions. I don't even know where to begin. I think maybe the retail aspect of it is what I would be focusing on now, on being that I'm exposed to so many of the small businesses in town.
Well, that's Vince.
Well, okay. Then
do you have anything for Joe?
Let me go back to Joe. So we were talking about the tax revenue of 70%. Can you explain what the 2% are according to what needs to be paid back to or on top of the licensing? That there's a 2% fee. I'm a little unclear about how that happens.
Okay.
And why and where it goes.
All right, I'll explain it. So the base tax on marijuana is the same as the sale tax on any product in New Jersey. It's no different. However, in order to get this legislation passed, we gave mayors and councils the option to add an additional municipal tax to marijuana products. So anytime a marijuana product is transferred from one organization or a customer to another, it gets taxed. So from cultivator to processor, from processor to retail, from retail to customer, the town can put 2% on each of that. Now, I had no problem with that because, you know, so that could add up to, you know, as high as 6% by the time it gets to the consumer. I'm all about local control. I want the mayors and council to run their towns and boroughs as they see fit. And I saw that if one town overtaxed their marijuana sales compared to a nearby town, you know, like if Franklin does it and New Brunswick does not tax, or if New Brunswick taxed it and we did not tax it, the customers will just come to Franklin.
Right.
If both tax it too much, that might reduce their sales altogether, and then they miss out on other opportunities. So that's a delicate equation everybody's got to consider for themselves. Now, one big misconception was security. Some mayors said, "Oh, I have to hire more cops. I have to hire more security," which is all nonsense. There's zero need for additional law enforcement and zero need for any security. And I could demonstrate it by asking you a few questions. One, when was the last time you worried about security at your bank? Never. When was the last time you cared if your bank got robbed? You're not going to worry about your money. It's insured. I'll ask the same question. When was the last time you worried about the local pharmacy down the road that has a hell of a lot stronger medications in that business?
All right.
Did you worry if they got robbed or their security? No. Did you see bars on the windows? I'm sure there's security in both businesses, but do we really care? Not us. It's insured. It's not ours. If we didn't give it to them, you're going to have zero impact. And regarding the impact on law enforcement operations, remember, marijuana has been in our community, is in our community, and if you ever raised a teenager, I guarantee you marijuana's been in your house at some point or another.
No doubt. So, go ahead.
I found a mysterious baggie in my house once.
Oh, my.
You know, I tried figuring out which kid it was, you know, and I know, you know, it took me weeks to slowly get rid of it.
Well, I have a little anecdotal chuckle on that level that many years ago, I have two brothers who were entrepreneurial when it came to this product. And they somehow took advantage of my mother's green thumb and they brought her a plant. And unbeknownst to my mother, what that plant was, my mother nursed that plant until it was like 4 feet wide and 4 feet tall, and it was her pride and joy. And my brothers were very entrepreneurial at snipping the leaves, and she had no idea.
Yeah.
She had no idea. When she did, there was some hell to pay, but it's really a beautiful plant. So again, and that is decades and decades ago.
Yeah.
That yes, it's been here, and I'm glad it's finally being harnessed for not only the recreational use without penalty, but the medicinal usages, which were so not out in the public perception
Yeah.
as to what its benefit was. And so I truly thank you.
And you know, another good thing is, you know, for the retail businesses, you'll notice that they're there only because, you know, they're there. You're going to see them. For the processing companies and the cultivators, you won't even know they're there.
Mhm.
All right.
It'll be near impossible to detect that they're even there. And but however, they're going to have, all these businesses are going to have jobs. There's a lot of labor involved with the retail. It's not just putting a bottle or container on the counter. You know, there's inventory, there's security, there's registration. There's a lot of things going on, and all these jobs will be union, meaning every single job will be paid above minimum wage.
That's good.
So you could have a part-time job selling this stuff at, you know, some store in a strip mall, and you're going to get paid $18, $19, $20 an hour.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So our viewer Harriet Tubman wanted, speaking of jobs, what's the projected job creation numbers? And then Vince, when we get to you, we'll ask about, is the town providing tax breaks to the business? But has there been any projection about jobs, and not only in the township but in the state, that's going to be created by this legislation? No.
The first thing I have to say is we have to really thank Joe Danielsen for his leadership, because without his leadership ability, the bill never would have been passed, and we never would have had the ability to have these jobs throughout the state, and the development out throughout the state. So that's really the most important thing. As far as how many jobs are going to be created, each business, and when I've been talking to them, if you're going to do retail, you're talking about 30 jobs. If
Wow.
you're talking about the development where you're going to be manufacturing, growing it, you're talking about 100 jobs.
Wow.
If it's an incredible job creation ability that's all due because of Joe's ability to get this legislation passed, and the township and his ability as leadership to convince the township council to be able to make cannabis a permitted use in the various zones that we have. So the bottom line is that there are probably hundreds of jobs that are going to be created, high-paying jobs, because of Joe's ability and his leadership ability to be able to convince the legislature and the township council to implement the policies that are possible to create these jobs.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you go ahead, Joe? Go ahead.
I was just thanking Vince for the accolades.
Okay.
Well, it's just true. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, truth is truth. When someone takes the opportunity to do what's right and do what's right for the community, create jobs, give people the opportunity to make money and do things that are correct, they deserve the accolades.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I remember when the speaker approached me, he said, "What's your position on marijuana?" I said, "I don't have one." He goes, what's your take on it? What's your experience? I said, "I don't have any." He goes, "You ever get high?" I said, "No." And he goes, "I believe 2 out of 3 of them." I never tried marijuana until I was in the middle of my research. And I bought 2 cookies legally, and they had zero effect on me.
Really?
Yeah, well, 15% of people, you need an enzyme in your liver, and I'm probably
really?
don't have that. Yeah, 15% of people don't have it.
Oh, that's interesting.
A couple of years ago, when Joe and I were talking about this and figuring out, what works and doesn't, he said to me, "What's the most important thing?" He says, "Jobs."
Jobs.
I mean, jobs, giving people the opportunity to make money. And when cannabis is in your society, don't you want to give them a legal opportunity to make money?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the bottom line. And that's what Joe's all about, is helping people, giving people the opportunity to make money and better themselves. And this is what it does.
The other priority was to issue more licenses than not, and put licenses in the hands of women, minorities, and disabled vets. Because nationally, when I was writing this, nationally, there are only 2 black people in the nation that had any significant percentage of an ownership.
Wow.
Only 2 at the time. Now there's more, and the only women that were on it were women that were married to rich, powerful men. They were the tokens, if you will.
Sure. So was it a hard sell? I don't know who to ask this of, either one of you or both. Was it a hard sell to get the township council to go along with approving all 6 licenses?
No, because once again, it's about leadership. And Joe had already done all the background work and was able to convince council ahead of time that the importance and what we were doing was providing people the opportunity to have jobs, and something that was already in the community. So when you have the leadership ability that Joe has and shows council said, we're treated like every other business. It was really a simple decision for council to make once Joe gave them the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then what the only modification to that is everyone decided, you know what? Let's not guess or be arrogant about it. Let's give the people a chance to speak out to us directly in person, and that's what council did. The mayor, the mayor insisted on it. It was genius. Let the people speak, and he held a dedicated meeting on it.
Right.
Genius.
Right. So, Vince, tell us about the kinds of businesses that are how many inquiries do you think you've had since everything was approved, since the council approved all those licenses?
I've had 50 or 60 inquiries.
Wow.
And I've written letters of support for probably 40 or 50 different companies.
Now, are those letters? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I know there have been several dozen who've already submitted applications for the manufacturing or distribution.
Wow. And those letters, are they needed? Is that part of the application process? They need those letters?
Yes, they need a support letter and a letter that says that where they're going to locate is permitted as per zoning.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about these folks. I mean, not their names, obviously, but are these big companies? Are these corporations? Are these?
What's incredible is that because of the legislation that Joe wrote and implemented, is that we have everything. In most states, you only have the big corporations. Joe was very concerned that we should have the little guy that should be able to do it. So we have everything. We have the big guys with the little guys and in between. Thanks to Joe, we have the guy who's living down the street in New Brunswick, who's a veteran, maybe disabled, has no other ability to do anything, but because of Joe's legislation, now has the ability to apply and get a license and have the ability to make some money. So you really got to applaud Joe's ability to get that legislation through and let people who have the motivation and the ability to do it, but without Joe's leadership, would never have the ability to get that type of license. So we have every level from the little guy to the big guy.
I just have a quick question for Joe. Joe, are you holding one of his family members hostage?
Oh, yeah. I may owe him a round of drinks after this.
Listen. Bill. What the bottom line is that sometimes you have legislation that only helps the big guys,
Yeah, that's true.
and it happens all the time. And I talk to Joe all the time through the whole process. This is a long process, couple
Mhm.
year process, and we talked a lot about it. And it was very, very important to allow the person who didn't have the means in the past to be able to do what they need to do. And is that not what America's all about?
Sure.
You
Sure.
come here as an immigrant, you have the ability to succeed, but you can't stack the decks and make it only so that Bill Gates of the world can succeed. And the
Mhm.
legislation that Joe championed allowed everyone, from a person like me or you or the big guy, to succeed. And that's leveling the playing ground. It's being fair. And that
Mhm.
was what was able to do.
What he's saying is true, but it does. There's the other side to that truth. Not to mislead anyone, it is possible that the little guy can get in with any of these licenses, but it is expensive. You need money for anything.
Mm.
You need money for the micro. You need money for the conditional. You need for the processing and the cultivation. You need money. Most people, unless you're rich already, wealthy, you're going to need partners, not only in expertise from growing, security, environment, architecture, retail. You're going to need financial partners. You're going to need investors because, for example, to become a grower, well, first of all, you have to buy or rent a building. That's expensive on itself. You're going to need to build out that building, meaning you're going to need to customize it, bring in the grow racks, the expensive lighting, security, point of sale system. It goes on and on and on. It's in the millions of dollars. And even though a processor license is a smaller operation, that's basically a chemistry laboratory and a commercial kitchen combined.
Hmm.
I mean, that's what processing is. You're extracting and separating compounds, which is a chemistry lab, and then you have to put it into some sort of edible product, which is a commercial kitchen. That takes even more money.
Hmm.
It's very expensive. And of course, the cheaper one is the retail. But you're still going to have to spend money. And what people do is they form a team that includes not only financial investors, but a national or a multi-state team or an international company that has experience in all of these areas to manage it all. They call them multi-state operators or national operators. And then you bring in people that'll have managerial positions or employment positions that are local and so forth. So even if you're local, even if you're a woman, a minority, or disabled vet, unless you're independently wealthy with experience, you're going to bring in people, and they're going to own a piece of the pie with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost one. No, that is 100% of the time true.
Yeah. Okay.
If I the legislation at the way I did, the way the Department of Health wanted to write it, and they drafted multiple drafts, you would have had zero chance unless you're wealthy and politically connected.
Of course. Go ahead, PJ.
Yeah, I wanted to backtrack just a little bit. The buzz, of course, globally is the recreational use, but
Buzz.
I think I didn't mean that, but brava. The emergence of marijuana as a medicinal boon and so many levels of so many illnesses. I think that somewhere, and please correct me if that's not true, that had a tremendous influence on getting the rest of the story out there and publicized and available to the public. There were so many uses that people had no clue that medicinally marijuana was could be life saving. And do you think that had an impact on you being able to pass the medicinal marijuana usage and then leading into the recreational use?
Well, in most industries, innovation is inspired by the hope of profit.
And necessity.
Every pharmaceutical company, they do their R&D in the hopes of down the road making a profit. Of course, after saving lives and improving people's lives. So you have to keep that in mind. Don't forget about the business end of it. So if you look at the Netherlands, Australia, and Israel, they're 30 years ahead of us on the business side, technology side, medical side. They're at least 30 years ahead of us. So I started talking to people like that. All right, how can we do it? And that's actually when I approached Robert Wood Johnson Hospital and Rutgers University, who quickly, as soon as I showed up, closed the door on me.
Wow.
They said, no, we want nothing to do with it. And then actually their lawyer said, we can't have anything to do with it because it's federally prohibited. I said, that's impossible. All you attorneys are wrong.
Good for you.
I just knocked on other doors. And until I got down to Cooper, down in South Jersey, I said, hey, guys, this is possible. Let's inspire state universities and county colleges to have curriculums. Let's inspire hospitals and cancer centers to have what I call an integrated curriculum or an R&D license, where you partner with partner in ownership and product and operation with a license holder, where you both own it. Well, the team in New Jersey's in my own district that said it was impossible. Well, these attorneys wrote a section that allowed for it. I didn't touch a word in it. I said, I love it. Thank you very much. Let's do it. And now there'll be 2 in South Jersey, 2 in Central Jersey, which those same attorneys will be signing licenses for, and 2 licenses up in North Jersey, where you'll have hospitals and medical schools with local medical license holders partnered completely in partnership. And these are non-competitive licenses. They're actually there waiting for them to just fill out the paperwork.
Wow.
So now Robert Wood Johnson at some point will go from a don't look, don't ask policy of marijuana for their cancer patients. Now the doctors can prescribe marijuana for the patients that are in their hospital. And I went so far as then I had to protect the doctors. I wrote in the law that no doctor group, no doctor's office, no hospital can punish or do anything detrimental to a doctor who prescribes marijuana. And then I went on to say, hey, you know what? No insurance company can underwrite any differently a doctor or institution that deals with marijuana. I had to protect them on every level. And so now we have Stockton University has a curriculum in cannabis studies. We have 3 or 4 county colleges who have curriculums in cannabis studies. So now those curriculums are going to have interns. So now if someone wanted to, a business, say there's a large medical license that was approved for Franklin Township off Clyde Road. If they wanted to, they could have applied for what I created. It's called an integrated license. So if they partnered up with the cannabis studies at Rutgers University in perpetuity, they would have gotten their license even easier because they would have gotten more points. So now Rutgers could grow along with them. Rutgers could send their interns to the business as part of their studies. They could do everything as long as they're integrated, the business and the university. You get almost guaranteed a license.
And there's your credibility.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about this Clyde Road operation. Is this, I mean, when are they going to be operating? And because I haven't heard about that one before.
They were approved a month or 2 ago. They were on the release. I forget the name of the company, and I don't want to say it in case I was wrong about the name.
Yeah.
but they applied for a medical license and they got one.
This is not Holistic New Jersey, is it?
It might be. I'm not sure. They're one of. I know they were on the list of.
I thought they were on Jiffy Road.
Well, that they're right next to each other.
Oh, they are. See, I never heard of Jiffy Road before. So that must be Holistic New Jersey then, right?
Yeah.
Vince, yes?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So they're the ones that we know about. Okay. So that's interesting. All right. I didn't ask you. I asked about jobs. What about dollar worth? The value of this industry in New Jersey. Has anyone estimated yet? Have the number crunchers looked at it yet?
Yeah. So the governor's office believed that once the market is fully standing, that the state would generate $300 million in sales tax alone.
Wow, just for the state. That's just for the state. So that doesn't count what would go back to the towns.
But remember, buildings have to be built. Interiors have to be designed. Security systems, computer systems, the racks. The whole industry is going from incandescent lighting to LED lighting.
Really?
So that technology was totally born, or at least inspired, out of the cannabis industry because the electric bills were just so enormous. The soil, the technology for soils, they don't even use dirt to grow these stuff. I believe they use coconut shells.
Yes.
Yep. Pulverized coconut shells.
Pulverized coconut shells. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Go figure.
So Vince, tell us about. Okay, so we just did a little bit of talking about Holistic New Jersey. Can you tell us what you know about them?
Well, they already have a license, and they're an integrated license, so they'll have the ability to both grow, manufacture, and sell.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be in Franklin. We also have two other companies that have existing licenses for medical marijuana that were originally located in other townships. Now, because of the time frame it took for them from they originally given their licenses to now, and because Franklin Township, due to Joe's leadership and the Township Council's leadership, being open to cannabis, we have two other entities that are looking and we expect to be located in Franklin Township. So my expectation is within the next 6 months, we'll have 3 locations that will be selling marijuana, cannabis, and one that will be distributing, manufacturing that marijuana.
Okay. And right now we're still talking about medical marijuana though, right?
Medical marijuana, yes. Because as you know, and as Joe has pointed out, the applications were for manufacturing distribution were just accepted in December, and the applications for the selling of marijuana will not be accepted until March.
Okay. They're taking their time.
On the medical side, in eligibility for licenses, is medical background a requirement?
No, but as part of your assessment, because remember, it's all competitive. The only thing that's not competitive is conditional licenses and micro licenses. Everything else is competitive. Mm-hmm. Another great part of the micro license. Thank you. If you qualify, you get it. So in your competitive application, you're going to want a medical component to that because it's a medical license. These applicant teams, imagine you go into a classroom for an exam and everybody is going to get a 100 score in a competitive classroom. Mm-hmm. The people who win are winning at the extra credit questions. Mm-hmm. They're all experts and have infallible or near infallible application, and their teams are near infallible. Mm-hmm. The ones who get selected win off the extra credit points.
Okay. So Vince, getting back to Holistic New Jersey, and I'm focusing on them because they're the closest, right? In terms of actually being able to set something up. You told me the other day that so they're going to have their warehouse on Jiffy, and they're looking. Did you just tell me they're looking for retail, or they picked retail on Franklin Boulevard?
Yes.
Okay. No, that's a what do they call that? No, I know it's a store, but I thought there was a special phrase that was used to describe a medical marijuana store as opposed to a recreational store. Am I just making that up?
In Franklin Township, we allow medical marijuana or non-medical marijuana in all the districts that allow retail.
Okay.
General business, Hamilton business district, neighbored business, etc. So we treat them no different than any other retail business, and that's really important because Joe, from the beginning, and when we spoke about it, and we spoke with council, and everyone agreed that is there really any difference between marijuana sales than any other business? There really isn't. There's no difference. So any place that you're allowed to have any type of retail, you can sell marijuana.
I mean, look at it. To sell marijuana to someone, you have to have a license, and they have to be 21 or older, just like cigarettes. And every convenience store
and alcohol.
And alcohol, every liquor stores, but just look at it. Every convenience store has that license to sell tobacco with that same requirement. So why would you really handle this any differently than a convenience store?
Okay.
Yeah.
And eventually, some year down the road, you're going to see this sold in every store, only because the business is going to dictate it. It's tough. Yeah. It's tough to have a business successful that only sells one product.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I have a sense that these medical, especially when it finally gets around to being retail, although maybe the medical people are doing it as well. I have a sense that they're going to be branching out into selling CBD stuff as well. Yeah. I mean, they're going to be selling gummies and tinctures and all the products that are available with CBD.
They could. They could. It behooves them. I mean, they're not allowed to sell alcohol. They're not allowed to sell food. Don't ask me why. I was against it. But, you'll see nationally, you'll see some marijuana retailers, you'll see them selling clothes. The front of the store is all clothes apparel, jeans, boots, hats, just to supplement the business. It's also has to also involve federal taxes, right off the square foot. But it's a complicated matter.
Yeah,
remember, as a business, you have to file state and federal taxes, and you cannot declare any deductions on your federal taxes for these businesses. That means
really,
yeah. So that means 100% of the money coming in is taxable. You can't write off your salary. You cannot write off your rent, your insurance. Every dollar is taxable federally.
Wow. I'm sure that'll change at some point, though. So you don't think so?
Well, once the federal government reschedules marijuana, not until then.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll happen. Holistic New Jersey, again, going back to them because again they're the closest to reality. That's a partnership, right, Vince, with a DC-based company are they Franklin people or just New Jersey people that they hooked up with?
It's a collaboration,
right? But are the people they hooked up with from Franklin specifically, or are they just from the area?
They're from the area.
Okay, all right, and the parent company, so to speak, they're in 7 states.
7 or 8 states, I believe. Yes.
Right. So this is one of the companies we were talking about earlier. One of these big not multinational, but multi-state companies. The other 2 that you mentioned, and I don't have the email in front of me. Are they how do they rank? How do they stack up as next to Holistic?
Well, obviously the state issued the licenses, so
right. Yeah.
They ranked up with. I mean, what did they issue? 12 licenses, 14 licenses.
I think it was 14.
Yeah, You know, so I mean, they were the top 14 in the state. So,
Okay.
and the fact that 3 of the 14 are willing to locate in Franklin stands to show how well Joe Danielsen and the Franklin Township Council have done what they're supposed to do to encourage economic development in Franklin. 3 of 14 want to locate in Franklin. That's pretty big kudos to Joe and the council.
That's a big deal. But I mean, are these big companies? Are these mid-sized companies? Do you know? Are they small companies?
They're both mid-sized companies.
Mid-sized. Okay. All right. And they okay. Anybody from Franklin involved in them, or is it outside people?
You're still talking about a collective investment of tens of millions of dollars.
Oh, sure, absolutely, yeah.
Each one of them, you know, Bill, what you're saying is each one of them has a collaboration of some entity or individual in Franklin Township, whether it's the food bank or someone else, because they have to show that to get the license. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So so the food bank is connected with. How does that work?
Well, when a group comes into a town, when they actually apply for license, they want to show, and on a competitive level, that they're integrated with the community, that they're contributing, that they're giving back. So all the nonprofit organizations, starting with the food bank, disabled veterans organizations, with the women's shelter, etc., they reach out to them and say, please sign a letter of understanding so we could just start giving you money on a monthly basis.
Oh.
And then they put that understanding into their application. You know, they'll contact churches or houses of worship to say, hey, listen, you know, I want the shepherd of this faith to be a part of this business. So it's not alien to them. So it's not misunderstood. So your flock can benefit from it. You might find that there are pastors and priests and rabbis on the board of directors for this. You might find people from the NAACP, members of board of directors. That is very common. A lot of people don't realize that. It's usually kept private, quiet.
Yeah, sure. That's
it
interesting.
happens all the time. There's several. I think there's 3 ex-governors that are on board of directors of marijuana companies.
No kidding.
I know of 2 pastors in Franklin. I know a president of a bank. You know, they're all over the place.
Wow. So let me ask you this: are there any economic incentives being given to these companies? Are there any like pilots or any sort of tax breaks that these companies are getting to come to Franklin?
No, because they're not needed.
Okay.
They're absolutely not needed.
It's kind of built into the law
that
we wrote to come to Franklin, because Franklin is an impact zone.
Okay. Interesting. PJ, anything? I don't want to ice you out.
My head is just filled with possibilities, and again,
I'm going to tell you the 2 hardest questions for me.
Okay.
Give me the question. I'm not going to give you the answer. 1, why can't we grow our own marijuana at home?
That was coming up. That was coming up.
You know what I tell people? Grow it anyway.
Bill's already growing it. What do you
grow it anyway? Yeah, Bill.
Well, is there a penalty for doing that?
I had a client, a friend of mine, who had the chromatography laboratories, and he said to me, "Why can't people grow their own medicine? You know, if tomatoes or carrots were your medicine, how foolish to tell them they can't grow their own medicine." You know, even some of the worst cancer patients, they're not going to go through more than 1.5 ounces per month of marijuana, right? Why won't you let them grow that? But some legislators, not my co-author, Senator Scutari was very, very supportive of that. But there were just some legislators that would not vote for this with home grow in it. The second hardest question is why why didn't we automatically include pharmacies as retail license holders?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're experts, and the independent pharmacies, they compound some of their own medicines.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't we find a pharmacist automatically qualified to sell marijuana? They have everything they need all ready to go, except for they don't possess the marijuana.
Right. What was the answer?
Exactly.
Politics and
Politics.
money. Yeah.
And they'd have to be a union shop, right?
Excuse me?
They'd have to be a union shop too. You seem to have mandated union.
Right. As it's written now, everybody has to be union. Everybody non-management has to be union.
Okay. Okay. Peach?
So how do you dissuade or just laissez-faire someone who's growing a garden?
It's illegal.
Yeah, but you know what? The penalty's not stiff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not. You know, it's like a parking ticket. I think it's like $50. You know, as long as you're not selling it.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you have one or two plants, I can't imagine that to be, you know, anything above menial charge.
Yeah. So
where you draw the line again, because it does not border on commercialism if you're growing it in your own home for your own personal use. As long as it's already been decriminalized on every other level.
It's totally ridiculous to decriminalize this, to license it and regulate it, but yet you can't grow it.
Yeah, crazy.
And by the way, you know, here's another thing: all these retailers and cultivators, they don't care. They don't care.
I would imagine they wouldn't.
No, that's right, because they say you'll never get the quality anywhere near the quality we'll get, and you can only grow, you know, one cycle a year. They grow, you know, 17 cycles in a year.
6 weeks.
Remember, they have the LED lights, they have the ventilation system. They're checking for fungus and bacterias, and they don't need pesticides, and they got the security. You'll never compete with them.
And they're not going to have deer coming in and eating.
Right. I mean, do you think the beer companies care about people who brew their own beer?
Oh, of course not. Sometimes they help them out. So what effect do you think this is going to have on the street trade, if any?
Well, it's certainly put a dent in it. We were hoping it would annihilate it, but if we did a better job with legislation, I think we could have really hurt it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to go away, but a lot of it's going to go away.
No, that's a lot of
the key here is to issue as many licenses as possible from grower, processor, and retail as possible. You're going to see some businesses go out of business. Some people just are really bad at business. They're going to go out, but that's what we call free market. Let the market dictate success instead of legislation. I don't trust legislation. Just don't. I trust the free market way better. But when you issue that many licenses and you have that many people producing a product, the cost has to go down. Right now, illegal marijuana is cheaper than medical. It's cheaper than non-medical.
Wow.
Matter of fact, you could get illegal marijuana shipped to you from all the way across the country. And with everything said and done, it's still cheaper to buy it here.
Wow.
That's interesting.
I only know that because I have two medical patients, medical marijuana patients, that it's so costly for them to have any version of marijuana purchased here. They save a lot of money by just sending cash to somebody on the other coast.
Wow.
And they get it shipped here regularly.
That's shameful.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
So Vince, Franklin has done it, obviously. What other towns in our general region have also, if you know?
You know, honestly, I don't know. I just know that Franklin has been by far the most welcoming township in the entire state
Yeah.
to cannabis. So what the other townships do is it isn't of any real matter to us.
Right.
You know, Joe was able to discuss with our township council and get our township council to come to the conclusion that it's very important to treat them like no other business. So what other municipalities do, and I think it's really shown by every single day. And I can tell you today, I had 2 phone calls, a Zoom meeting, and I wrote 2 letters on marijuana today.
Wow.
And that is a typical day because we are open, and I think you can see from the discussion tonight, and from Joe's explanation that it makes sense.
Yeah.
There's no rational reason why you would not want to do it. There really
So,
isn't.
Bill, I do know New Brunswick allowed it, but they attached an RFP to it. So they go through the RFP. Now, it's good that they allowed it, but however, there comes a cost with the RFP. One, that means they're gonna try to locally limit it, and they're gonna try to be the ones who select the license award. So there's probably going to be a legal challenge with that. Mm-hmm. Also, with that is they're simply not going to have as much competition because they have the RFP system. I believe North Brunswick also allowed it, similar to Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
But Piscataway, I'm going through my district. Piscataway did not opt in. And the mayor told me it's because the CRC had failed to issue their rules and regulations by then. However, by the time they issued them and then they invited the applications, now Piscataway wants to opt in, but now they're too late because no one located it in Piscataway. So people have a 3 or 4 month jump. And what that means is it's not just a jump to how fast you get to your sales. Because that's a year and a half, 2 years away before you even get a plant that you can sell. Right. What that means is all the big, solid investors, technology, all the professionals, all the scientists, all the doctors, everybody, they've already hopped on a ship. They're already committed. So Piscataway is going to lose all the early and best people in the industry. And I think they were short-sighted on this.
Interesting.
And then you have places like Bridgewater, Bridgewater, Hillsborough, the towns to the west of us, they opted out. Even though the voters voted almost 70% in their town to allow it.
Yeah. And Bill, what we did here is it can't be any simpler. We're allowing it, and we're treating it no differently. So there's no RFP process. There's no separate application process. So even many of the towns who are allowing it, you have to go through this whole process of proving to them that it's correct, a whole application process. If you want to put marijuana on a retail site, or you want to sell books, it's the same thing. You come in, you get a zoning permit, you get a building permit, and you're done. There's no difference. We don't treat it any different. So it's as simple as you can possibly get.
So anyone is eligible to
Absolutely.
Do this.
Yeah, well, as long as you have the money backing and
of
you
course.
get the license.
But I mean, there's no pre-existing qualifications educationally.
I'd say this to people in comparison. If I handed you a liquor store license and said, PJ, I'm giving you this license for free, what would you need to do to open up a liquor store? Because you still need to build or rent the building.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to come up with salaries for all your staff for at least 6 months. And you still have to put $400,000 or $500,000 worth of inventory in that store.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
For sure.
So this, no matter how easy you are going to make it for people legislatively, you still need money.
Yeah. I would think a company like Holistic would have a little bit of an edge, seeing that they are operating in 6 or 7 other states. They could just take some, I would imagine, I don't know anything about growing marijuana, but I guess I would imagine they could just transplant some plants from their facilities in different states and bring them over to New Jersey, because it's all indoors anyway, right?
Well,
Or can you not transport across state lines?
No.
That
you can't transport plants
no.
you cannot transport plants or seeds across state line.
Yeah, that's a big mistake.
Now,
Except for
then
now,
how
wait
do
a
you
minute.
start growing plants in New Jersey? That's a question you don't ask, and that's a question you don't answer.
Yeah.
and then I would ask your friend who buys it from the West Coast, how do they get it shipped over here?
Through common carrier.
But
And,
it's illegal,
actually,
right?
The process is he sends an envelope with cash to a company that's on the internet.
Yep.
And he has a little piece of paper what to send them back, and without fail, it's mailed back, the product. I'm talking about gummy bears, chocolates, cookies, pre-rolls, everything.
Well, gummy bears are CBD. They're not pot, right? They don't have the THC in them.
No, these all have THC.
Yep.
Fully loaded. Okay. All right. See, I know nothing about this.
Fully
Cindy.
loaded. I like the way you
Yeah.
put that, Bill. Fully loaded.
Locked and loaded. PJ, have anything? Anything more?
The process itself, somebody knocks on the door and says, I want to do this, I'm well funded. How long of a process is it from application to turnkey?
Well, that all depends. I can't answer that, but I can give you some indications. One of the original 6 license holders that Christie approved, I think it was Blackwater, took them 10 years.
Wow.
Because they didn't get their stuff together. The investors were fools. It just took them 10 years.
And they didn't have the legislature behind them at that moment.
No, they had everything they want them. They just couldn't get their act together. But depending on if you're building your own building, if it's built out, if you're renting, depending on the size. Remember, when you get everything perfect and you start germinating seeds, you're not really selling for about a year,
Right.
with everything else done.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it's going to take 9 months to go through a particular plant to get it through its full cycle. Remember, then it's got to be dried, then it's got to be aged, and then it's got to sit for a while. It's got to be tested at every step of the way. This all has a time cost to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at a year after everything else is done from seed. And then during that process, you're going to have to start tiering your grow cycles. So when something becomes 4 inches tall, you got to start germinating another group of seeds,
Right.
and so forth. Because you need plants being cut every day.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Labor-intensive business.
Yeah, you don't really know how your business is doing until the third harvest.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Interesting.
Which would be a great name for a business. Note to
Third
self.
harvest.
Third
There you
harvest.
go. Third harvest. And again, this is something that, as you said, 70% of Franklin, when the referendum, not referendum, when the public question came up for a vote, however many years ago, it was passed by 70% of Franklin Township voters. Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly in the 60%, somewhere
60,
between 60 and
okay.
70. And that was true pretty consistently throughout New
Statewide.
Jersey. Yeah. Throughout New Jersey.
Right.
It was
So
consistent.
this is not something that people are jamming down anybody's throat. This is something that
This has been a tremendous waste of tax dollars, stopping the grow and sale, enforcing it, the police action, the arrests, the court, the incarceration. It's the stupidest thing I've seen America do. One of the most stupid things is
and
spend tax dollars on this.
right. So, well, hopefully we can fix that. So, PJ, you have anything else for our guests?
I did want to have Vince define those different areas. I was a little confused about that. The neighborhood business, general business, Hamilton Business District, and retail district overlay zones. If you could explain those, they're all, according to the ordinance, the retail sale of marijuana will be permitted in those separate
Yeah,
sections. What's the difference between neighborhood business, general business, etc.?
basically, from a layperson's perspective, any place where you see right now retail sales, you see Easton Avenue, which is, you see Hamilton Street, you see Route 27. Any place you have, strip malls, those are the areas where you'll be able to sell.
Hmm.
Now there's some outlying areas because there's some technicalities, but any place where you see where there are strip malls and retail areas are the areas where you have the possibility to sell cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
But what differentiates a neighborhood business from a general business? And then doesn't something like Hamilton Street or the Hamilton business area, isn't that umbrellaed under also neighborhood and general business and retail?
Those are just zoning districts. It's kind of like when you look at their various areas in town that can have single family homes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you need 15,000 square feet. Sometimes you need 20,000 square feet. Sometimes you need 6 acres, but they're all single family residential. General business, neighbor business, those are just technical differences to determine where you have the ability to have retail sales.
Is there a limit as to how many those kind of businesses we can have in town, or is it?
No, now there is not. Now, constitutionally, you can have 100 hairdressers on the same street. The township could have determined that we only want to have 1 retail cannabis, 2 retail cannabis, 4. But in discussions with Joe and the township council, they determined, this is America. The free market should determine whether there's 1 or there's 2 or there's 5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is it not America? Is that the way it's supposed to be?
Sure.
If we have 1 or 20, if they can all survive, fine. If they can't, then we'll have 2 or 5 or 10 or whatever.
That's the free market. I was always under the impression that there were 100 hair salons on Hamilton Street.
Now there's only 78.
All right. So, PJ, enter your questions.
A little bit. Retail district overlay, that's a little hazy.
The retail district overlay is an area on the Elizabeth Avenue area where was originally zone M1, which is light industrial. Now that's all BI. That portion of that, we enable them to also do retail. Okay. So there's an overlay. It's like a secondary zoning where ShopRite, and those 2 retail developments across the street near New Brunswick are. So you can either develop in accordance with the BI, or you can develop in accordance with the retail district overlay, which allows retail sales. So it's both.
Okay. That new warehouse that the brand new purchases of I think it's 200 Cottontail. Is that gonna be potentially a cannabis situation? Do you know?
It's a possibility.
Ah, interesting. What about ProTech?
ProTech has been approached by a cannabis developer and to enable them to have, 50, 60, whatever it is, 1,000 square feet of warehouse. And it is possible that they may be a cannabis facility. Whether or not they are, they've had discussions. I've had discussions with them. At the end of the day, you don't know.
So it's still up for sale. They haven't inked any deals to sell a building yet, though, right?
As far as I know, no. The last discussions I had with them is that I made them aware that it's a permitted use, and they were in discussions with them to make that purchase.
Just as a side issue to this, do you know why they're selling? I thought that business was pretty robust.
I can't tell you. It's like anything else. If you're making $1 million a year and someone offers you $50 million a year, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I suppose so.
And I don't know what their situation is, but and like any other business person, if you're offered more money and it makes sense to you, you're going to sell. So whatever it is, and that's their private decision to make.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we broke a little news tonight, PJ.
Did we?
Yes. There are gonna be a lot of people not happy about that. All right. Well, did we cover everything, guys? Is there anything that you think we haven't touched on in this discussion? No, pretty much.
I don't think so. I think I got to thank you for bringing everything up. I got to thank Assemblyman Danielsen and the Township Council for having the ability to do things that some people think and sometimes may not be correct, and taking leadership to do what's right.
Very nice.
Where does somebody actually apply for the license and or the micro licensing?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Where does somebody apply for the licensing in any of the categories as well as the micro licensing? Where do they go?
So they would go to the website of the Cannabis Regulatory Commission where the applications are online. Mm-hmm. And the great thing is the CRC does not go through application phases. You can apply anytime and then you get in line to be reviewed. The other thing is one of the limitations I put on there. You can only be on one license at a time, unless you own 5% or less of the license. Micro license, you have to own 51% or more. Mm-hmm. So if you're apply for a micro license, you cannot be on any other license for more than 5% ownership. Mm-hmm. Basically, you'd become only a small passive investor.
Mm-hmm. Elsewhere.
Right. And I did that to force more names and more hands on the pot. Mm-hmm. No
so
pun
intended. All right. Well, that's great.
Thank a lot of people whose wheels are turning tonight.
I hope so.
Possibility.
Yeah. Lots of possibility. And I look forward to the council having to deal with all the money that's going to come in.
Right. Well, if somebody's sitting home thinking, let me call Joe Danielsen and ask him, how do I get into this? If you're asking that question, you're not ready to get into it.
We're going to pave your road, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the Mott's not supposed to be paved till the spring, but anyway.
We're going to pave it.
And you're not a minority.
I am not. You, however, happen to be a woman. Yeah.
I happen to be a woman.
We'd have to just find someone with about $2 million.
That's it.
All right.
Assemblyman
Joe Danielsen and Economic Development Director Vince Dominach, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We really appreciate it. This was a great conversation.
Bill, PJ, again, I just always have to thank the Franklin Reporter and Advocate. You really are in every corner of our town, in every church, in every school, in every heart in Franklin Township. There's no better way to start your day than to check out the Franklin Reporter and Advocate's website and have a cup of Joe, because we're both always at your service.
Right.
Thank you.
And
we appreciate
thank you. And on that note, we're going to say goodbye to our two guests. And again, thank you guys for coming on. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye now.
For all that you're both doing. We appreciate it.
Bye. Okay. That was fun. And interesting. What?
The wheels be turning.
Your wheels are turning?
The wheels are turning.
Oh my God, no. That's such a complicated, it's a chemistry business.
It's just
it's not it's chemistry, it's farming.
True. I'm so fascinated by the medicinal side of it, on the holistic edge of it. I think that is just extraordinary, and that animals are also benefiting from it. And I think right now there are a couple of places that are featuring CBD products, but there's nobody yet who's doing the actual marijuana planting.
For
that's
pets,
gonna
for
be able
animals,
to be distributed.
for animals,
Well, there are CBD products out that
right? For animals, I
are
don't know that we want to give
but
them THC.
there are usages across the board from medicinal benefit. So it's a matter of time. It's just we're on the cusp, and that Franklin has been a designated desired location to not only open a retail business, but for the actual planting, the cultivation, the distribution. It's really it's thrilling to be a part of this community. It's really
Yeah, there's a lot of
it
potential
shows it.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very good. Um, I had a thought there, and it just kind of flew out of my head. Um,
Well, guess what you need to rev up your memory.
yeah, right. That's what I need. Um, yeah, we have so much space for that, for the warehouses that would. I don't think any of this is going to happen outdoors. None of this is going to happen outdoors. It's all going to be inside.
Well, right.
Yeah, we're not in a climate that would. Well, not only that, the climate, but gee whiz, can you imagine the security that would be involved in something like that?
Well,
But
that too.
yeah,
That
we have a
too.
lot of
And the
warehouses in town.
greenhouses, I think, are necessary.
Yeah, and a lot more, and we broke a little news with that Protec thing, because we did have the story about Protec being
Yeah.
up for sale. We did not, however, have the aspect that they were being approached by
toying.
marijuana producers. So that's now they're right across from Jersey Cyclone, are they not?
Oh, I made that leap. I was making that leap as you were saying that. Oh my goodness, what a party that's going to be!
We're gonna have to tell Jan. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's going to be a party.
Oh, well, that's just speculation right now, but
But
yeah.
it's
So
connected.
yeah, and I'm not a partaker, but I imagine there are enough people in this town who are, and who use it recreationally and who need it for medical purposes. That I just don't know. I mean, we have a handful of liquor stores in town. I mean, how many pot shops, how many head shops can one town support? Who knows? I guess it
Price
depends.
will drive a lot of it.
Who does?
Price and inventory. Well, price.
Price and
Price
quality.
will
I mean,
Yeah.
they've got to have good strains, and you have, for the medical side, you have different strains for different purposes. I'm sure that's true on the retail side too. I don't know for the recreational side. I don't really know, but I guess it's what the market will bear. It's a big town. I mean, I can't see more than one on Hamilton Street. Although who knows? I mean, we have a big town with lots of different sections of town, lots of different retail areas in town.
And speaking of one that is already on Hamilton Street, although they have not branched out in the actual marijuana usage, our sponsor.
Yes, this is a good time to remind you all that the News Hour was brought to you by We Shop CBD Bud Tender, located at 657 Hamilton Street. We Shop CBD Bud Tender is your home for all things CBD, from gummies to tea to beauty and healthcare items. They even have products for our pets, as we were just talking about. So for your CBD needs, visit We Shop CBD Bud Tender at 657 Hamilton Street, or call them at 732-757-2866. And once again, we thank our friends William and Marcel. Right?
Both
Marcel.
of whom are very well versed in the health benefits of the products that they are well versed in, as well as the pet aspect of it. They're very knowledgeable. They've had successes with applications of many of their products. They'd be a good resource, Franklin, if you've got questions. They'd be a very good resource. Could you repeat that phone number again, Bill, please?
Sure, 732-757-2866. And they have a lot of right on Hamilton Street. They have a lot of products, a lot of different kinds of products. I believe they have some apparel, do they not? They have some T-shirts, as I recall.
I think I've seen T-shirts, and every once in a while they'll have an art show and a multi-vendor show.
Yeah,
they're nice people. They know what they're doing.
Yep, very well versed.
they're
in the
very
topic.
they're very welcoming to educate you if you
Right.
have a need and you don't know necessarily that that need can be served by
Right.
one of their products. So it's
Right.
I
Good
think
place.
it
Good
would
guys.
behoove. Yes.
Absolutely. And you can use CBD products for all sorts of things that ail you, and Marcel especially is quite well versed in it.
Mhm.
Did I date myself by saying head shop? Is that phrase even used anymore?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
have
know.
no idea. But I went
I'm
to
not
school
sure.
in the village, so I've heard it all.
Oh, and by the way, we're joined by, well, not joined by, but we are being viewed by William Sanders, who says, yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Hey, Will, how are you?
That's
Good.
great.
We're excited
That's
to
great.
have you on board. And we hope
Yes.
that Franklin takes advantage of your expertise and your product line.
Yes. We had a great conversation with Assemblyman Danielsen and Vince Dominach, who,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and as folks who've been reading the Franklin Reporter know that Joe, I can't remember how long ago it was, to be quite honest with you, but he went on a fact-finding tour across the state. He went out as far as Colorado and to research this before he wrote the bill. And he got opinions and testimony from folks from all throughout the state, leading to the creation of the medical marijuana bills.
Yes. He likes to be prepared.
Yeah, he really was. He really
Very
did
thorough.
dive into the research. And again, this was nothing. This is not something that's a fringe idea. This was supported by vast majority of voters, both statewide and here in Franklin Township. So this is not something that that is being forced on us. And you know, we covered the question and answer session that the Township Council held, and I'm having trouble remembering anybody who was against it. There may have been one person who spoke against it, but other than that, it was widely supported, and you know, it's about time. It's about time. So there you have it, Franklin Township.
Yes.
We are going to be the premier site for weed in a year or two. When not we being us, I'm talking about the township. Huh?
Oh, okay.
The township will be the premier site for weed, not
Good that you clarified.
not the Franklin Reporter. No, we have no. I don't know about you. I have no interest in that.
Oh my
in
God.
inhaling hot stuff. That, you know, or
Oh,
you know,
please,
cookies
that's
and brownies
never,
could be fun.
Never hot smoke down this throat.
Cookies and brownies could be fun, but we'll see.
Yes.
I don't think that's legal yet. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So, Franklin, thank you again for joining us. If you want to see more programs like this, we need your support. And how do you give us your support? You give us your support by subscribing, going to franklinreporter.com and following the directions on the little box that's going to pop up if you're not a subscriber. It's 10 cents a day, $37 a year, really not that much. And the good that it does is you know, priceless, quite honestly. If you're a small, large business organization, you can advertise with us, and you can get more information on that by going to ads, or rather writing ads at franklinreporter.com, where PJ Parker will gladly show you all the different possibilities there are in advertising on our website, which is franklinreporter.com, in our newspaper, our monthly newspaper, which is the Monthly Digest, on our live streams, our podcast, this podcast here, or rather this news hour here, and our morning report, which a lot of you get, which is our 5 a.m. Email blast. Wake up call that contains all of the headlines from the previous day, and you can sign up for that on our Facebook page or on the website. Again, over on the left side of the website, there's a little box that invites you to sign up for the morning report. That's a free newsletter, and that will take you to different stories on the news site. Also, we have a link to the Gas Buddy, which gives you the best gas prices in the area, so you can figure out where you're going to buy your gas that day. And it also we have a link to 511, which is, of course, the statewide traffic tracker. So we give you all the information that you need to start your day in the morning. What's going on in town, the best place to fill up your tank, and what routes to take to make sure you get to wherever you're going without any undue delay. And I used to say, get to work, but so many people work out of the house now since COVID that doesn't apply anymore. Now, if you have any ideas, any complaints, or if something you want us to cover here on the News Hour or in a live stream, send them to me at editor@franklinreporter.com. You can also find us on the Twitter machine. You can find us, obviously, on the Facebook machine. We're also on on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, which is the other place where these news hours are broadcast.
And archived.
And we're also on Instagram. So we have an Insta. I still haven't put the link up yet, but we are also on TikTok. PJ's not saying.
A lot of convincing.
She's not saying anything about that. She's not a big fan of the TikTok.
Nah, not at the moment. I would have to see a lot more benefit. There's been just too much crazy that's emanated from that landing spot.
But it's a lot of it's funny.
Well, a lot of it's funny, but a lot of it's been very dangerous.
A lot of it's ridiculous. A lot of it's just stupid. Yeah. But a lot of it's very, very, very. There's some I've said this before. There's some very funny people out there. You see the comedians on TV and whatnot, but just average Joes. There are some hilarious people out there who are just doing it just because they like to do it and because they're naturally funny and
or not.
Well, some of them aren't funny, but the majority of them are. I mean, and very creative. So there you have it. Anything else?
I think we've wrapped it up for tonight. I think we're on the cusp of some amazing happenings, and it's going to be interesting how it develops.
Yeah, and it's about a year and a half off, but now one thing we didn't talk about was the Holistic New Jersey and the other companies that got approvals. When they did, they'll be able to apply for retail for selling just recreational marijuana a year after they start. But they have to show the state that they have enough supply. Their stash is big enough to handle both the medical and the recreational business. So
you're enjoying the lingo, aren't you?
I mean, it's bringing me back to my teenage years. Yes. Don't harsh my buzz. Don't harsh my buzz.
You don't harsh your buzz. Oh my gosh! I swear I never heard that.
You did so.
I swear.
Did you ever see the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High?
Nope.
Oh my gosh. That's a who
classic.
Is it? I'm trying to think of Sean Penn. One of Sean Penn's classic movies. He's a grade A stoner. And
I like
he's
Sean
hilarious.
Penn, but I did not see that movie.
Oh, yes. He's a grade A stoner, and he's hilarious in the movie. Anyway, there you have it. I've said that 4 times already. Do we have anything else to tell folks?
Oh, just to stay tuned and keep us informed when you see something in Franklin that you think your neighbors and friends might be really interested in or need to know. Please don't hesitate to contact us. It's my phone number is 732-820-0840. Bill, yours is
908-581-3522.
And so if whether it's a traffic report or a lost animal or someone who is in need or someone who's done something extraordinary that we can all be cheering for, this is what we wanted to telegraph to our community. This is how we started out. Not just the bad and the ugly, not just the headline grabbing that so many of the other media in the area built Franklin into an area that we're trying to build in a different direction. The honor, the excellence, the potential, and the quality of the opportunity and its townspeople, which is why you will see us frequently in the schools and wherever there's something that's going on. And Franklin's a proud participant in. So we want to know about it. We can't be everywhere at the same time. So you are also our eyes and ears, Franklin. Let us
Absolutely.
know what you see and what you think others should know about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And don't forget, we really would appreciate your support, either in subscriptions or in advertising. This is, as I said many times, this is what we do. This is all we do. And we would like to continue doing it. And on that note, Franklin Township, thank you again for tuning in to this January 13, 2022 edition of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour. This is Bill Bowman, the co-publisher and editor. And as always, Franklin, until we see you again, stay safe. PJ Parker, say that thing that you always say.
I always say, this is PJ Parker from the Franklin Reporter and Advocate. Thank you for tuning in, Franklin, and we will be back.